The NFL's competition committee has proposed its changes, and they are set to be reviewed this week by the owners at the NFL owners meetings in Orlando. And there's plenty on the docket. Revising the language of that catch rule, no doubt, among the biggest things they will have to address. Another is giving the officiating department the power to communicate with a game official about ejecting a player for a flagrant non-football act when a foul is called. And a big one here regarding the potential for teams to sign head coaches while their teams are still in playoff contention. Sal Paolantonio anchors our coverage now with Morton Shefty in Orlando. Sal?
Hello there, Wendy. Nick, just Adam Schefter is here. Chris Mortenson's here with the NFL annual owners meetings here in Orlando, Florida at the Ritz-Carlton Hotel. Caught up a little while ago with the Chief of Game Operations, Troy Vincent, to discuss the proposed change in the catch rule. Here he is one-on-one with us.
Jesse James. Let's think about the Jesse James, the Calvin Johnsons, the Dez Bryants, and actually the Calvin Benjamin. So when we look at those plays and we went back and started said, forget what the current rule is. Would you like for this to be a catch? And then we just tore up the old rule and they began writing slight movement of the ball, remove the term slight. So now you can still maintain, you can still have movement, but maintain control going to the ground. Rewrote that and replay that the replay standard remains the same. So that's where we began by simply asking catch committee. Then we went to the active players, then the coaches. Would you like for this to be a catch? Fans said yes, and then we wrote it. That's how the competition committee got to where they was for the playing rule proposal that they're putting on the floor.
And I talked to Rich McKay, guys, the chairman of the competition committee, and he told me it was the Dez Bryant catch, no catch, the overturn catch, no catch against the Green Bay Packers. It was really the genesis for the change because they heard not only from announcers, but they heard from fans. The backlash was tremendous. What have you heard on that, Mort?
Well, first of all, we heard from the NFL commissioner, Roger Goodell, at the end of the season scream about the catch rule. And if you watch the Super Bowl between the Eagles and Patriots, there will be people tell you that a change happened then, only they didn't announce that a change happened then. And we still have to vote on this proposal. But getting to control 2 feet down or a body part, a knee or whatever, and then making a football move or having an opportunity to make a football move is a big part of that. But I will tell you that I've had some people say, okay, it'll probably lower the controversy, but what happens on that Jesse James catch if it happens at the 20-yard line in the last minute and nobody's touched him, and when he goes to the ground, the ball comes out, it's now a fumble. And if you're playing against Bill Belichick, he's taught his players to do what?
Shoot the football.
Pick up that football and run with it. And now are we going to replay to see if he's touched? So, yes, this seems to simplify it, but I don't think it eliminates the controversy.
It's not perfect, but it's better.
Well, they believe it will be better, and they hope it's better because we had too many Mondays last year where we're going over whether Jesse James caught it, whether Calvin Johnson caught it, whether Dez Bryant caught it. Too many times this has been an issue in the past where it's detracting from the game. And instead of talking about players and some of the accomplishments that they have on Sunday, you're talking about whether or not this was a catch. I don't think the league wants that. So basically, to say what Troy did, they're trying to simplify this. Catch it, 2 feet or a body part, and a football move. And the football move is where the issue
What happened behind the scenes with the pass interference proposal made by the New York Jets to go from a spot foul to a 15-yard foul? In the competition committee, there was quite a bit of discussion about it, but it didn't get the traction it needed. What happened
Well, again, I think every year, Sal, there are any number of these proposals that are brought up. This year, the Jets brought up one that would mirror the college rule where pass interference, defensive pass interference, is not to the spot of the foul, but actually just a 15-yard penalty. And I think there were just people that were concerned that there would be defensive backs who were beat, who pulled down wide receivers running past them in the open field, and that it would result in just a 15-yard penalty rather than a 50, 60-yard penalty, a game-changing penalty. Doesn't sound like it's got enough momentum to pass right now, but we'll find out the rule changes tomorrow.
I would say no chance it passes. I mean, the competition committee did not recommend or endorse.
It was a 6-2 vote against it. Right.
One of the voices I was told inside that there are discussions, the competition committee against this rule was Mike Tomlin, which is interesting. Defensive coach, who specializes with the secondary, and saying the NFL, basically what Troy Vincent had said earlier in the week or last week, that defensive backs are so savvy and experienced, not to mention defensive coordinators, they will sit there and make a mockery of this rule if you turn it into a spot foul. And oh, by the way, it means that if a team has the ball on its own 20 with 45 seconds to go, you can forget a team having a dramatic comeback with this rule.
But
it's not going to pass.
It is an unresolved issue because in the last 4 years, the yards penalized for pass interference has gone up in each of the last 4 years, reaching 4,671 yards penalized to defenses for pass interference. That's a lot. And defenses are squawking about it.
Leagues like this league likes offense,
Yep,
more offense.
yep.
They're not going to rule in favor of the defense on this one.
Adam Schefter. Whoop. Hey, Wendy, we're going to be here all day, all week. Come back to us, Wendy. We'll be right here giving you all the latest news from the owners' meetings.
We plan to do that, Sal. Gentlemen, thank you. We'll take it from here, though, on the catch roll, at least, as we say hello from the Verizon film room, because here's Overreaction Monday. How about this? The catch roll will be just as bad as it was before. We're going to go glass half full here or not. Field, is that an overreaction or not an overreaction?
It's not an overreaction. Now, Shefty, Moore, and Sal Powell just noted there are going to be some crevices they're going to have to work through with this new catch rule, but the bottom line is this. Regardless of where the catch rule ends up, sports are emotional. They're emotionally driven, and you're going to have fans that are going to have a play work against them, against their favorite team, and it's going to be a close call. Whatever the new guidelines are of this catch rule. And they're going to say, that's ridiculous. There should be an outcry of backlash. That's just the way that sports work, right?
So you think it will be just as bad as before?
Just as bad.
Okay.
And again, there is room for improvement. It will improve.
All right,
but the reaction will often be nothing changed.
Okay, fair enough. But are we going to get this right at some point?
Well, let me say this. I think it's an overreaction that's going to be just as bad, and here's why. We show that rip. We show that rip of catches, whether it's Kelvin Benjamin, Calvin Johnson. We show this. I think we all agree these are all catches. When you watch them, what we see is like a bunch of great catches.
Yep.
So what we've done is it's not as bad as before because these are now receptions, and they should be, and they should have been all along. Now, it's not perfect. So I'm not saying it's made everything right. It's not perfect because there's room for interpretation on this football rule, football move thing. And I think the other aspect of it, and which what Morton and Adam were referencing, is you're going to get more fumbles, and they're going to be cheap fumbles. And that's something that most coaches don't want in the game, and it's one of the reasons that the catch rule is the way it is that the guy runs a slant, and the defensive back rakes at the ball, and it comes out, and it's a fumble. And for the last few years, it's been an incomplete pass.
Yeah.
That's going to be frustrating.
Yeah,
Break the tie, Brew.
I'm with you, Tim. I'm going to go overreaction. It's an overreaction because
We're gonna make progress,
what was catching a football, getting possession, and having to survive the ground? I mean, why do I have to survive the ground once
When
I've
I
already caught the football?
Yeah,
So that's the thing. I think players are also they're coached that if that ball comes out, you play through the ball. No longer do you play through the whistle. You play through the ball. Offensive player, receiver will have to get that ball if it's a little fumble at the end, but maybe he's touched, maybe he's not, but he'll know to regain that possession even if the ball comes out. We're going to see this fixed because I just think when they talk about simplification and making it more simple, simplified, I think that's great. Now we just have to catch that football, maintain possession. If that ground causes, it won't cause an incompletion. It'll be a fumble.
You know,
Yes.
I understand that it has to be clarified, and there's a human element in this, and it needs to be consistent in terms of the enforcing of the rule. But you know, you look and a catch is a catch, and so many of these instances, and somehow we have to.
Yeah,
you have
but
to rely on
there's
that.
your football move and my football move.
Yeah,
right, Tim?
true.
That's
and-
right.
but
Teddy's looks much better than mine. That's the way it works. That's how it goes.
You're not alone. You're not alone in that regard. Let's move on now to Le'Veon Bell because we continue to watch that situation. Of course, he's under the tag right now, but the two sides trying to work out a long-term deal. But General Manager Kevin Colbert said the team may eventually talk or will eventually talk with his reps, but right now things are on hold. And here's exactly what he said. We're not intentionally ignoring that. More urgent business needs to get taken care of. We will reassess where that is. He'll reassess where his interests are as well. I anticipate us continuing that process once we get through the free agency period and maybe even through the draft. The draft can change things on both sides. That's true. How about this for Overreaction Monday? Finding Bell's replacement should be a priority. And that could mean Bell himself, I think. But finding an answer, perhaps, to Bell's situation should be a priority.
Yeah, I'm going to go with overreaction because I have some implicit faith that a long-term deal is still possible between the Pittsburgh Steelers and Le'Veon Bell. Beyond that, this team needs some more defensive reparation. I think we can all agree that with Ryan Shazier officially out for at least 2018, the team did recently sign John Bostic in free agency to a 2-year deal, but linebacker, a quarterback for that defense right now, is essential to keep that group on a positive trajectory. They made some strides last year on defense. I think finding a quarterback in the middle of their defense is more of a priority than finding what would amount to a backup running back for at least 2018, if not longer, behind Le'Veon Bell.
This is not an overreaction for me. Le'Veon Bell's production has been so impressive because of how they use him. He's obviously a remarkable runner. He's tremendous when they use him in the passing game. And what that's done is it set the table for him to say, listen, don't pay me like these other running backs that you guys just hand the football to. I'm different. You have to pay me different. That's why I played on the franchise tag a year ago, and that's why I think you could be headed really to a disagreement in terms of what the value is perceived by the team versus what the player perceives that it is. And so I think you need to be careful. I think teams are still cautious about paying a running back. One, by the way, that's had a significant knee injury in his career.
And suspension.
And a suspension, that's right. About dedicating that kind of money to him.
Yeah, I'm with you. I'm not an overreaction, Wendy, because I think he's serious. You franchise tagged me for 2 years now, and then now it's time for me to play hardball. Don't even look at my receiving yard. Don't look at my rushing yards. How about my scrimmage yards? Or I'm in a conversation that's rare in terms of scrimmage yards. And by the way, I think I turned 26 in February. I'm young. I'm in the prime of my career. It's not like I'm even close to 30. I got so much time. I can hold out. I can get this season, and I can do the Kirk Cousins. Kirk Cousins showed us about how
he showed us how to do it.
Franchise tag twice. I mean, if you're willing to bet on yourself, Kirk Cousins did it. Le'Veon Bell, I think he's willing to do it on himself.
Well, you mentioned those yards from scrimmage. He's averaged 129 scrimmage yards per game. And to your point about being a small group among players with at least 50 games, he's at the top. That's the highest mark in NFL history. And I would agree he's serious this time. Coming up, Odell Beckham's off-the-field behavior continues to be an issue this offseason. We'll talk about what's possible and why. Teddy Bruschi explains he's so special.
Film Room is brought to you by Verizon.